Margaret Fleming here with Front Office Sports. I have Rand Getlin today here to talk about his documentary. He is the executive producer and director of Us Against the World, which is the new docuseries on HBO about the U.S. men's national team. Rand, you followed this team for 4 years, and now, from Qatar to now. What is it like to finally be at this point?
Yeah, it's a little surreal. You kind of you go into it knowing that it's a long road, but it's rewarding too. It's anyone that's seen the show yet, it's a group of young guys going out there giving everything to try and make the country proud, and so it's hard not to want to give your all as well, right? I mean, they're doing everything they can to operate at the highest level possible, and you do the same, and then hope that fans enjoy it. And so it's been really cool to see like early returns in terms of people, saying that it's connected to them, it's moved them, that they really dig the personal stories. And so, yeah, just I think we're filled with a lot of gratitude at this point. It's been a lot of work, and just happy to be here sharing the story with the world.
What did you learn about this group of young men, having been in really close contact with them for all the ups and downs of the last several years?
Yeah, I mean, that's an answer I could probably go on for like 3, 4 hours on, right? Like, you learn so much about them, their families, the sacrifices they've made, the perseverance, all of that, the grit. But I think what's been like most impactful for me is how mission oriented they are. You know what I mean? Where you get so used to professional sports and it's like these massive contracts and all this money and the glitz and the glamour, and then like among this group of players, there are guys that are doing really well for themselves. They've earned their ways to the highest levels of the game, playing at some of the biggest clubs in the world. But like when they come together for the national team, this kind of like, yeah, this mission to try to make the country proud, to try to give the country something to cheer for, and the humility, like the notion that they haven't achieved everything they want to achieve for the U.S. men's national team or the United States of America yet. But they wake up every day and gut it out and try to fight through all of it, fight through the natural adversity that life brings you, but then also obviously like the folks that don't believe yet, that they feel like they need to do more to give a reason to believe in them. And yeah, it's inspiring. Like it really is. Like I think it's like the quintessential American story. We all come out here, we have a chip on our shoulder. We want to do everything we can to improve our own plights, the plights of our families, and in this instance, really do something special for the country. So that's been the biggest thing in the context of professional sports. It's pretty, I would say, like for me, enlightening and refreshing to see that it's about so much more than the acquisition of things, capital, material things. It's really about something bigger.
I want to peel back the layers here in your executive producer hat a little bit. How did it kind of come together at the start? Did you all approach U.S. Soccer with the idea? Did they come to you? And then at what point did HBO kind of enter the picture?
Yeah, so this is a really unique project insofar as it really started with the players. We, back in 2019, did a mini documentary, which was kind of how we broke into the business, doing these shorter form, hyper premium docs on athletes like Zion Williamson, Jalen Green, Sha'Carri Richardson, and then Tyler Adams was, at the time, a 19 or 20-year-old young man playing in his first year in the Bundesliga in East Germany in Leipzig. And we did this story on him and how he kind of arrived at that point. And as much success as he was having playing for a big club in Germany and Champions League ball, and you sit down with him, you say, what's your ultimate aspiration? And he's like, man, I want to play for the U.S. men's national team. I want to captain the U.S. men's national team. And hopefully one day we can go on to do something special that galvanizes the country. And I didn't know anything about the sport in 2019. I knew nothing about soccer whatsoever. I'd covered the NFL professionally for an extended period of time and a bunch of other professional and high-level amateur sports. And so it was just like the human component of it made me and my partner, Janina Pelayo, she's the executive producer on the project with me, and then my co-director, Luke Corver, who's phenomenal, and then our editor, Lucas Harger, who we've all kind of been together for the better part of a decade. We were all just like, this seems like a really rad, differentiated story. Like, let's see if we can get to a place where we can tell the full team story. So Tyler and the Players Association, this is also unique because the Players Association is involved. They have a seat at the table along with the United States Soccer Federation, us and the players, and we all kind of came together. We approached U.S. Soccer. We approached the Players Association with the players. And yeah, it came together over the course of about 2 years. We started talking in February of 2020, and in May of 2022, we got a call that says, hey, can you be on the road in 48 hours in Cincinnati for a 27-ish day trip? And we threw everything in a carry-on and got on the road and have been cameras up ever since. So definitely unique. I'm not sure there's anything like this in professional athletics where you've got the union, the federation, as it were, the players, and a production company / studio together saying, hey, we want to go out and do something special here. But yeah, just from a business perspective, lot of complexity, as you can imagine. Getting all those people to the table in the first place was a challenge, of course. At the time, one of the things that increased the complexity is they were in the middle of a labor standoff, the federation and the players of the federation and the Players Association, and so we kind of were able to communicate with each of them independently and say, hey, we know you got a CBA to work out, and we know how complex that is. I used to cover those things for a living. But this is one thing that I think we can all agree is really positive for everybody if we hit it, and really grateful that they engaged in earnest, understood the magnitude of the opportunity, and we were able to get this deal done before the CBA got done. And then, here we are.
And what was it like trying to shop it around and finally landing it with HBO?
Yeah, the HBO of it all. Thank you for redirecting me.
You had a wonderful, thorough answer. No worries.
A lot before you get there. Yeah, so HBO, we went out and we tried to sell a show prior to the 2022 World Cup. And, it was interesting because you cover the sport, this. Soccer in America is still growing. Trying to get people to be believers is still very much a work in progress. And unfortunately, Hollywood just looked at the project and were just like, essentially, we don't believe yet. Like, we're not sure, that enough people care about this team. We don't know if enough people care about this sport. We heard a lot of like, this sport doesn't work in the United States of America, which was, interesting for us to hear because we're like, it's the biggest sport on the planet. Like, it's gonna happen, and the World Cup's coming. So like, we should do this. So prior to 2022, every single premium shop, premium streamer platform across the entire industry said they passed. And our thing at the time was we were pretty certain that was the wrong call, and that the team was going to go out in Qatar and make the country proud, and then things would come back around. So we had a choice to make at the time. We could have folded and just said, oh, it didn't work. We tried and it didn't pan out, but we decided to continue filming through Qatar. And kind of pushed it on our own. We were able to finance it ourselves, raise some financing, and continue filming. And then, of course, we know how that went in 22. They went out, they performed well, made the country proud. Didn't achieve everything they wanted to achieve, but had a good showing. And while we were in Qatar, we started getting calls from the streamers saying, hey, let's talk. We want to think about this again. And so, yeah, grateful for that. Mostly grateful for the team for going out there and proving us right. And yeah, that was when HBO kind of came into the mix. And it's HBO. I went to school at the University of Oregon. I remember starting to watch Hard Knocks 24/7, and they were kind of like genre definers at the time, and really showed us what it looks like to be like inside, but then of course for us as storytellers, we're like, how can we raise the bar even further? How can we take the work that these giants have done, stand on their shoulders, and do something that elevates the genre even further? And yeah, HBO ended up being the right place for us. There were multiple bidders for the project post Qatar, and I think there were a unique confluence of circumstances that led us to believe that HBO was the right place. And seeing the show now, 4 years on, really happy we were able to make it work, and thankful to be able to turn on the TV, and see our stuff up on HBO.
Yeah, and did you know at that point, you said we're going to go out and do it anyway, did you know at that point you still wanted it to be kind of a journey to 26 outlook, even at the start?
Yeah, so I think you start with like, it's damn near impossible to get stuff on air. Like, it is so hard, and we are, in many ways, David to the industry's Goliaths, right? Like, you look at like all of the athlete shingles. You've got LeBron James, you've got Steph Curry, you've got Kevin Durant, you've got Tom Brady, like, and they're out in front. So a lot of the like rush on sports stocks was absorbed by those production companies and or studios. And so for us, it was like, well, we got to zig when they zag. We need to bet early. We need to identify, undervalued assets and be able to tell a story that's powerful. But we cannot have this be a one-off. Like, it needs to be a forever franchise. And so for us, that's always how we think about it. It's about retention of IP, the ability to build on that IP, and the ability to sink your teeth into a story once and then forevermore. And so we knew that we wanted to tell this story for the rest of our able-bodied lives, and just continue to build on it. But you go through quite a number of iterations along the way of like, okay, well, what is that? What's the first thing that you're going to put on screen? So in working with HBO, it was pretty clear to us, like, we want this to be event television. We want it to be, massive and buzzy. And of course, it's wonderful when the team goes out there and gets great results, because it just continues to like build on the buzz. But we had to create something that wasn't dependent upon competitive outcomes. And so that was really where it was like, well, if we tell real deep human stories, then the outcomes are additive, but not required for people to really enjoy the show. So yeah, it's a once for us. It's us against the world every 4 years for the rest of life. Every time a World Cup comes up, we want to lead the country into that moment by helping them to recap the last 4 years of the journey, and get them bought in on the young American men who are going out there to try to do something special for us.
Very cool. Very cool. In the last week or so, you were all over my feed talking about there was a viral clip that was everywhere about this situation between the Reynas and the Berhalters, and your decision, or the team's decision of how to handle that and sort of address it and then move past it. And there were so many comments that were like, why didn't we go 15 minutes? Why didn't we go 10 minutes? It didn't have to be a full investigative series. I wanted to ask you a little bit more, because you kind of touched on it in this great, hour-long interview you did with Glenn Crooks. But I wanted to ask you if I could dive a little bit more into like what those conversations were like why didn't we go 15 minutes? Why did we want to just address it and then keep moving forward?
Yeah, I think it's hyper complicated, right? And like for us as storytellers, and I'd mentioned I started my career in investigative journalism, so you get a fact wrong and it's a wrap. Your career is over. It's really actually that high stakes. And so I think that there's a time and a place for everything. In the context of this show, and I've been clear about it from moment one, if you look at the genesis of our company, and it sounds like you did, and I appreciate it, you take the time to deep dive on what is Park Stories. Like, I created this with Janina, my partner, when I left the NFL Network, because I wanted to tell human stories with more depth and nuance. And so, this is not an investigative endeavor. It's never been an investigative endeavor, and I will continue to do investigative work. But there is kind of a clear delineation between the work that I do in the investigative realm, which I haven't done in over a decade at this point, and the work that, at least not anything that's public, and then the work that we're doing here with this show. This is a team show. Again, I cannot emphasize enough. It's about a group of young men trying to go out and make the country proud. And so I understand the question. Like, I get it. It was a big story. We acknowledge that. It's an important story. And to the extent that there are people out there that want to go do investigative work on that, of course, it has not, we would never begrudge somebody from pursuing something they think is important. And, we were hopeful that people would understand our rationale as well, as like, in the context of this show, I don't know that there's an enough for this. And it is so complicated. If you want to be fair, which one of the things that unfortunately did not get discussed from the Glenn Crooks interview, as I said, the most important thing is we need to be fair. And the question for us as storytellers is, well, what does that look like? And so every time we would crack it open and try and expand on the idea, you're like, well, you need more. And you got to talk to more people, and you have to sit down and you have to figure out a way to continue building on this until it's fully fleshed out and fair. And I'm going to emphasize that a bunch here because it got left out last time. It's like, that is the crux. It has to be fair. And I think for me as an investigative reporter, there were 3 times in my career that I was fortunate enough to be part of teams that finished in the top 5 of the APSE Sports Investigative Journalism Awards. So like, I know what it means to put out highest quality investigative work. And I hold myself to that bar. And I want to be clear. Yes, our team discussed all of these things, but like, I will wear this. It was my decision ultimately, right? And my decision was, if we can't do it fully and fairly, then let's acknowledge it existed, which we did. And unfortunately, the reporting doesn't seem to capture that. Like, we say that there was a controversy between the Reynas and the Berhalters, and then we move on, because that's not what this show is about. And there seems to be, and again, I understand it. There seems to be this insistence upon, because we had the access, we must cover this thing in great depth. And, I just don't agree with that fundamentally as someone who has done this work for a long time now. Like, there's a time and a place. And, we don't require of every show that's done that it cover everything that exists in the universe. And so I will acknowledge, like, as a human being, as someone who's trying to do the right thing, as someone who cares deeply about the medium, who cares deeply about storytelling, who cares deeply about fairness and accuracy, it is a bummer that that the discourse didn't acknowledge the totality of the work, that didn't acknowledge all of the things that the show is, and it kind of hyper focused on this one thing. But look, I'm a big boy. I have to understand that these are the things that people are going to be upset about, and we just have to put our head down and do the work, and be comfortable knowing that, like, look, there's a lot of people out there that are really enjoying the show. We want to bring this show to the masses, not just folks that are U.S. soccer super fans. They're fantastic, and the team needs them to be behind them, but also, we've got a country of 350 million people, many of whom have no idea who this team is, many of whom have no idea what's going on over the past 4 years, or even the last year. And so we want it to be accessible to everybody. And certainly, while we understand that there's room for reality TV shows and those types of things, that this is not that project. So, I would just say that, like, again, I can't say it enough. We had 5 hours. We have to make decisions about which stories we're going to tell. I got taken a little bit out of context, unfortunately, and if that happens again, it is what it is. But the facts don't change. The truth doesn't change. We had a relatively limited time to tell the story. We decided to focus intensely on the human stories that existed within it, and we weren't going to half litigate an issue that required a lot of depth and nuance and put in 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 15 minutes and take away from something if it required hours in order to be fair. And that's my position. It won't change, regardless of what anybody says about it, and so that's kind of where I'm at with it.
Really thoughtful answer. Thank you. I appreciate you going into all that.
Thank you.
I'm a bit of a sports investigative nut. That's kind of my favorite topics to kind of get into. So I was just kind of curious from a personal perspective. I'm sure you could talk for many hours about all the different stories you worked on, but what were some of your favorite investigations from that era of your career?
Yeah, I mean, look, I worked on stuff on the NBPA with Billy Hunter and nepotism allegations at the NBA Players Association that resulted in wide sweeping changes at the NBA. I did that with Adrian Wojnarowski, one of the legends in the game. I was able to work on stuff with Dan Wetzel and Charles Robinson at Yahoo Sports on the University of Alabama back before NIL was a thing, and we were trying to prove essentially through our work that it wasn't always just about the name on the front of the jersey. A lot of times it was about the name on the back of the jersey, and I had deep reasons for doing that work as well. I was really pretty mission driven even then, and this is something I'm sure you and I could nerd out on for many hours.
Probably.
And so, it was like, for me, I went to school at the University of Oregon. I knew a bunch of the football players and had been around them a long time. And so, like, I always thought it was profoundly unfair that they weren't able to capitalize on the value they were creating in the market. And so what I really wanted to do through my work was prove that there was a market for talent, which today we all are like, yeah, of course, look at how much money is being made in NIL. But at the time, they were trying to convince us that the players weren't valuable, that it was really all about the team. And so, I'm unabashed about it. I've always been mission driven. Like, this is not something I hide from, and I've never hidden from it. It's one of the reasons why I ended up leaving the NFL Network, is because I was working effectively for the 32 team owners. And it is logical for them to not want stuff that is, overly, I want to be careful how I say this, because I need to be fair on this as well. But, like, bottom line, I was not the right person to be working for 32 team owners. I can be really effective working with them, right? For instance, in our current capacity, to help tell stories. But, like, if the idea was I wanted to report that a player earned a contract, which I believe to be objectively true, and I received an email that said, stop saying that they earned the contract, say that it was, whatever, it's anything other than earned. And I'd have a conversation about that and say, well, wait a second, but they did earn it. They're going out there risking all of the, things that we know, American football, violent game. And they're not giving these young men this money because of charity. They're giving it to them because they've proven to this point that they can continue to be, they've been valuable and they can continue to be valuable to this team, and therefore they're going to pay them. So it was stuff like that seems like not a big deal to most people, but to me it was everything. And it was one of my comparative advantages as an insider, is I did have this maybe more nuanced take on how reporting should be done from my perspective. And a little bit of that might be my legal background. A little bit of that may be the way that I grew up and on food stamps and foster care for a period of my life. Like I just have a thing for fairness. And yeah, I think from an investigative standpoint, all of that work was profoundly important. I'm really proud of the work we did. And I'm working on a project now that I'll talk about someday down the road that is hyper investigative in nature, and again, it's rooted in an exploration of something that I think is profoundly unfair in professional athletics, and that we want to see maybe kind of like more attention around the negative impacts on athletes as a result of this dynamic. And so that is a place where it's like hardcore investigative journalism. And then we've got this other thing we do with Park Stories, which is like, that's not our thing. That's not what we do. And we encourage anyone who wants to do that kind of work to go do it. It's important. Investigative journalism is a foundational element of our democracy. Like it's like a big deal, right? In sports, people try to minimize it, but I think that there's been wonderful work done on the investigative side in sports, and that continues to be wildly important. And I'll be supportive of that. I'll do some of that myself for the rest of my career, but like, when I come in and I do the Park Stories thing with Janina and Luke and Lucas and our team, we want to inspire people. We want to uplift people. We want to help people to see the light in the world. And I think it's important right now, given where society is at, we're so fractured. And I don't want to spend my life fracturing us further. I want to spend my life trying to bring us closer together. So that's it. It's like one of these things that's like, I wish I could please everybody all the time. I'm a people pleaser. It really does like matter to me, and so seeing the positive feedback on the show is awesome. Seeing like people that don't pay attention to sports at all, or follow American football but don't care about soccer, men, women, and all say like, "Wow, I love this. I love these guys. I love this team. Like I want to support them. I didn't know any of this." That is fulfilling. That was what we set out to do, and we're doing it in large part because the guys are worth supporting, their families are worth supporting, their wives, their moms, their sisters are phenomenal. The villages that help them get here are phenomenal. So, it's you get it, Margaret, as someone who's into investigative journalism. Like, I think the world is changing. I remember when I worked with him, he was a columnist who also was doing investigative work. And at the time it was like, you can't do that. Woj became one of the most, successful reporters in the history of the business. And not everybody loved the fact that he did straddle those worlds. I was never really a columnist. I was like an investigative reporter, but then I became an insider. And that job is way different. Like being an insider is way different. And you have to acknowledge that like there's tension, and I don't know that it's too easy to live on both sides of that equation. It's hard, right? So I try to separate them. Hey, over here, I'm doing investigative journalism. And over here, I'm doing stuff that is intended to uplift, inspire, and bring us closer together. And I just, again, I keep reiterating this. I just have to accept that, like, not everybody's gonna understand that. There are a lot of people that will be frustrated that I don't do this or that in the context of this thing over here, or frustrated that I did do that thing over here. And I guess it is what it is.
Rand, thank you so much. Congratulations on the documentary. Tuesday nights on HBO. And then the World Cup kicks off June 11th. We'll have that for you on Front Office Sports. But for now, Rand, thank you so much.
Thanks, Margaret. Appreciate you.